Clerica, this one is for you. And I also want to thank all our black brothers and black sisters in America who have saved the world by conforming to slavery. We know that the day you wake up from your slumber, definitely there will be a world war because your presence in America is somehow advantageous. They may seem to hate you, they may seem to lynch you every day. You are like pets. You know, people love their dogs. They want to keep their dogs as pets, especially white people. They just want to keep their dogs as pets. And when their dogs die, they cry too. So this is the situation of a black person in America. The day you wake up from your slumber and you want your identity, to restore your identity as African, they may not like it. They want to say um, you are meddling in affairs of other nations, calling Africa other nations. This is the biggest mistake the world is making today, that the Africans who were taken from Africa by force, sort of kidnapped, should forget about their names and use names like Clay, Johnson, Liston, Washington. As for Washington, um, Peter, Smith, all those funny names that you've been given by your slave masters. You continue the legacy, you continue to conform, and you discard anything and despise anything that is African. In such an extent that we even think that you wish you were white. The way you have embraced whiteness and conformed to white supremacy. Because you are paying your taxes to enhance white governments. We are saying, restore your African dignity. We are saying, the time will come when you will have to stand up. Maybe this generation is not ready because they think maybe the white America will change and love them, which is impossible. It has been, we always say 400 years. It has been way more than 400 years now that the disease of white supremacy came to the whole world, and everybody who is white wants to be supreme. Now we are saying, thank you very much for having kept the world peace, because the moment you wake up and claim your legacy that was left by ancestors in Africa, definitely there will be a world war, there will be Armageddon. We hear of people talking of Armageddon today, that the war between Russia and Ukraine will create Armageddon because all the Vladimirs don't want to stop the war. Vladimir from Ukraine and the Vladimir from Russia doesn't want to stop the war. It may create some shots being fired. And I know some black people will unfortunately die in America, and some will even in Africa as well, because we don't know the fumes of that nuclear. How far will they go? Maybe they will affect us here in Africa as well. But we still hope that there will be peace. But the real Armageddon will be the day your children, maybe your great-grandchildren, wake up and say, we were taken from Africa, and we want to know where we were taken from. We want to go back to that land where our ancestors were kidnapped. And I can assure you, not even one king or chief in Africa, not even one president or prime minister in Africa wants to chase you away when you decide to come home. This is your home. Africa will always be your home. It's just a matter of you waking up like how you did with slavery. Somebody stood up and some sat down in a bus. Rosa sat down in a bus and there was big noise. So it will be just an action, just one act by one individual that will make the black America to realize that the ritual that you were forced to take, which was going around a pole and saying, I discard anything that is Africa, I am going to leave my name in Africa, and from now on I will be using a white name that will make me better than anybody in the world. If that mentality goes away, then the lynching will stop. The problem with lynching that has made us to wake up and talk like I am doing now is the lynching that is continuing to hurt us. Because if George Floyd is lynched, if Daniel Hembrink is lynched, then it hurts our heart. If a black judge, Watkins, says it's okay for my black brother to be killed by a white boy, it's even worse. That's worse than lynching. It has caused us to stand up. When will you stand up? When will you claim your legacy? Do I really have to go to the African court and claim that your legacy should be returned to you? It doesn't have to. You must stand up and make that decision. You may call it racism or any other name, but this is self-realization. This is self-determination, knowing where you are and knowing where your belonging is. You belong in Africa, and there's no slavery that can change that. There is no act of slavery or emancipation that will change that. It says it's called emancipation, but I can assure you that even today, the black man in America is worse than he was many years ago. It is worse than he was. At least there was a plantation, there was a field where they could work for nothing but they could eat. Now, after the so-called emancipation, black Americans do not have food to eat. That's the worst. That is the worst that can happen to any Americans. I urge you to remember Muhammad Ali. I urge you to remember Malcolm X, and I urge you to remember Elijah Muhammad. Those were the people that stood up, although they had it all wrong, but it was better than sitting down and enduring slavery. You need to know that one of the people of the nations within Africa that helped slavery were the so-called Islam, because those days you had to choose between Islam or slavery. So Islam actually fed slavery. And when we see you fighting over whether slavery or Christianity is the best religion for an African, we know we are far from the truth, because actually Islam fed slavery. You had a choice. Either you are a slave or Islam. So that struggle still continues up to this day. Unfortunately, the Arabs, who are far north of Africa, are all Muslims, and they think they are better than the Africans who are in the south, who are mostly Christians, because they were influenced by the English Orthodox Church, which was about Christianity. And as it is now, we have been told that Jesus will come tomorrow, and we are still waiting for that Jesus. But in the meantime, the minority whites in South Africa, where I am, are owning the land. And that's all. The tragedy also is in other African countries where The land is owned by black people. They don't know, but they do not know what to do with it. I am saying they won't know, but the day you stand up and be counted and claim your land back, then that land will be used to produce food for the world over. The world over is in hunger today because you are sitting in America. You enjoy to be an American because it makes you feel better than everybody, than every black man that is in the world. But the day you come back and you claim your ancestors' legacy and say, my parents were taken from this area. Let us do DNA tests so that at least scientifically you can be assured that you are real Africans. It doesn't matter which part of Africa you came from, because I'll tell you, until 1884, Africa had no borders. You could move from Cape to Cairo and nobody would ask you a question. You could go and marry the king's daughter in Benin, in Ghana, in Cairo, and nobody would ask you a question as long as you could afford. But when whites came, they said they will do borders in order for them to be at peace while scrambling for Africa, while exploiting the African resources. So they wanted to create borders for themselves, not for Africans. So this thing of borders in Africa also needs to go away. You were able, your slave masters were able to remove borders from Illinois, Washington, Florida, Houston, California, all those states in America united and became one country. There's nothing that stops us from doing that. There is nothing stopping us. But I know when you stand up, some European countries, including Chinese, who are now here to come and exploit your land, will stand up and gang against us to say, let us help those few, because we will have a few that are now benefiting out of the division of Africa, who will resist the unity. And another war that would have been started by you claiming your land back will begin. And that is the war that I'm fearing. That is the war that I'm thanking you for having impliedly kept quiet, because you have not claimed anything. You are still claiming to be Americans despite the lynching that you endure every day. So you need to think about it. I think we should go for your land in a very strategic and peaceful manner. If you say, I am not going back to Africa, but I am just going back to till the land that was left for me as a legacy by my ancestors, so that even if I am in America, even if I'm in England or Russia or China, I cannot starve because I am enjoying the fruits of my legacy just like any other person in the world. Today we have people who came from Holland here in South Africa, and we never changed their names. They came, they were Van der Merwes, they were Bottas, they were all the same that you'll find in Holland are still here in this country. And they have just changed their Dutch language to be something called Afrikaans. But if you listen to it, it's actually Dutch, the actual Dutch from Holland. And those people have kept their names. And we are saying to them as well, we have got nothing against you. Your coming to Africa was actually a blessing if we can use it as an opportunity to make Africa stronger. These are the people that we will be going and negotiating with nations where they came from, like Holland, to say we want to have warehouses in Holland where we will keep African produce and sell it to the world. We need those people. We've got people from England. The same thing applies to them. They have their allegiance to the Queen of England, which we don't, and we will use their presence in Africa to say, we'll go and claim the land that you were chased from, because they were never chased. They were not never cruelly chased. They just opted to leave their land and come to Africa. So they should go back and negotiate with the people who look like them, that we need to have trading relationship with Africa so that we can be able to sell African produce. We're not talking about resources, African resources, just talking about food, because at this a day and age, the only problem that we have is food crisis all over the world. And please, just shake yourself and wake from the slumber and save Africa. Make Africa great again.